Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Cal.
Hey man, lovely to see you. So it's been a while since Calm and I have recorded a podcast here on the channel, and today we're back with arguably one of our favorite genres, the rom-com, specifically the teen rom-com. And I'm going to pass over to Calm to explain what two movies we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be a good one. Off to you, mate.
So yes, of course, we've talked about teen rom-coms. We've also talked about teen Netflix rom-coms, which are usually a very low standard. There's so many worse there are ones that are worse than The Kissing Booth, which I know it's beyond belief, but it is true. There's Perfect Date. Sierra Burgess is a loser. That's fucking unwatchable. That film. It's dreadful. Like I don't know if you've even heard of it.
I haven't, mate. I haven't.
It's fucking horrendous. I tell you. Like, we'll need to talk about it with Cash or
For
something.
sure.
But it's
For sure.
Tall Girl. Tall Girl.
Tall Girl's
terrible,
good.
though.
I don't mind it.
Tall Girl's
maybe
not bad,
good.
but
It's maybe not good.
conceptually awful.
Last
So this
summer's
episode-
good. Last summer's good.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that one, but
good.
yeah, I expected something awful here. This is probably the fourth or fifth time I've seen the first one. Second time I've seen the second one. So when I went into watching them, expected very little, got a lot. So these are two on rewatch, two great films. And we're talking about To All the Boys I Loved Before and To All the Boys P.S. I Still Love You. So this is a franchise that is very popular. Especially with teen girls, I guess, is the biggest demographic. But we're grown
We're
adult
masculine men. We're masculine
love this film.
heterosexual beasts.
And I love the first film. I like the second one, I guess.
I like them both. I'm actually the opposite way around. I like the first one, but really like the second one. I think I prefer the second one personally. But
you clearly don't like John Ambrose McLaren enough. Fuck you, man.
John Ambrose McLaren, what a guy. But yeah,
we'll talk about it.
I know. Just before we kick off today's episode, thanks to everyone who supported us recently. We really do appreciate that massively. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on the two To All the Boys movies before. That's a tongue twister. And stay tuned as well. I think this weekend or next week we'll be uploading our review of the third one, Always and Forever. So yeah, it's gonna be good to cap off that trilogy as well. So
yeah, Matthew, if you still like the second one despite Lara Jean picking Peter Kavinsky over John Ambrose McLaren, you clearly haven't seen the first one enough times.
Okay.
you see the subtle clues of like what a knobhead Peter Kavinsky is, and then you get to see this warm, lovely boy. This great guy who's
John
so much
Ambrose
better
McLaren.
for Lara Jean, and then he just gets in the bin.
What a guy! No offense to there, he's not as cringy as I thought he would be. To be honest, he's not.
Yeah,
he doesn't look what
if
I
you've
thought
seen
he
The
looked like
Perfect
either.
Date, he can do a lot worse.
Yeah, but I haven't seen that one, but we'll check it out. But yeah, To All the Boys I Loved Before, the first one. Now, one thing that's interesting about these movies, isn't it, mate? Because I kind of like them in the Kissing Booth movies, is in like they're pretty much released every year, like clearly intended to be like a 3-part trilogy.
Also, The Kissing Booth has stolen the main crux of each film.
Yes, it has actually, hasn't it? It absolutely has. And yeah, I mean, if you want to open the floor, mate, with your thoughts on this first one.
So, the sort of opening, point that we're made aware of is Lara Jean's sort of affection for her sister's boyfriend, who was initially her best friend, and then her sister went on to date him. So she's not being completely uncool. But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on dating your siblings' best friend? Like, do you think that's an uncool thing to do?
I'm quite lucky in this instance because I'm an only child, so that it's impossible for this kind of scenario to happen to me. But if I had a sibling, if you and I were brothers, and I dated your, how would this work?
Yeah.
So if you and I were brothers, and then
no,
okay, we'll not use this.
No, you're messing this up massively.
Okay,
you're saying essentially if you had a sister and I dated her, that's what you're trying to say.
Yes, I would like. I think as a general rule, dating your sibling's best friend is bound to end badly.
Oh well, no, actually, no. I've reversed the scenario. So it's like, it's like you having a sister, and then she decides to date me, and then she's the one dating her sibling's best friend. That's the scenario of this film.
Okay,
basically this film is basically The Kissing Booth if it was from Lee's perspective. His brother is now dating his best female friend.
Yes. Now, I think if you've got that kind of dynamic with members of your family, namely, you know, your sibling and obviously your best friend, I think if it's all cool with you guys, go for it. But I think if you're just gonna go out of the blue and not tell anyone, it's bound to end badly. Like I was listening to an episode of the True Journey podcast where, you know, this this guy emailed in and he said, my mum is he started off the email by saying, hello, True Journey and Lawrence. My mum I have a 33-year-old mum who's very hot or whatever. And he said all his friends at uni like had sex with her. Like his own mother. I was like, that's not on, and they didn't even tell him. Like
No,
that's a no-go
no, that's
zone,
not
isn't it?
cool.
Yeah, but it's quite
Yeah,
different to this
no,
one.
I think this film presents quite a bad scenario because, you know, there is an
Yeah.
ideal situation where, you know, that's a fantastic thing because then, you know, if you had a sister and everything went well, you know, you know, that I was welcomed into the family hypothetically, you know, that's an ideal situation, I guess,
Yes, of
because then
course.
you're forever linked to your best bud. But, you know, when feelings come into the scenario, which you know, thankfully we were two heterosexual men, so, you know, whilst I compliment you on your looks, my friend, don't fancy you.
Oh.
And, you know, I think in the case of this film, like, it does seem like an awful situation to be in,
Yeah.
because, you know, Lara Jean's like relegated into a side character in the life of someone that she had a strong relationship with first.
Yeah, she is. She absolutely is. And I think on the subject of largely, like Lana Condor is her name.
Hmm.
She's a fantastic lead in this film. I think she's absolutely fantastic. And, you know, on talking about her relationship with Josh, they really do behave like best friends in this film. The dynamic between the actors is quite strange. They almost feel like acquaintances. Maybe that's because she spends more time with Peter rather than Josh, and the film doesn't really set up that dynamic until the end of the film. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I never really bought the Josh and Lara Jean romance anyway, to be honest.
Yeah, they have one flashback, and then the rest of the film is, you know, really icy between the two of them.
Yeah,
You know, which is you know, it's appropriate based on, you know, the context of the film. But then, you know, he's just binned off in the second film, like he's not even there. You know,
yeah.
there's one passing reference to him, and then he's just forgotten, even
Hmm.
though, you know, he's definitely still at school, you know, with her, because, you
Yeah,
know,
he is, isn't he?
you know, the film takes place over like 3 months, you know, from like September to December,
Yeah,
or, you know, sometime in that frame. So by the second one, he should still be there because it takes place
yeah.
days or weeks after the first.
Hmm.
But, you know, as you mentioned, Lana Condor, I think with any other lead, this film would be completely sickening. But she manages to like absolutely sell it, you know, with her never-ending charm. Like the script is like, you know, like, it is like sickly sweet, you know, in the sense that, you know, it's all these like fantasies, and, you know, it is very teenager, and, you know, it is.
Yeah, it is.
I think when with any other person, you know, watching a grown adult, you know, sell the dialogue of being a teenager would just be too cringy to handle.
Yeah, I know, fair enough. And you know, I think one thing about this film, I felt really bad. I thought Josh and Peter like looked so similar at the start, so I was like kind of trying to distinguish who each character is. But by the end, obviously, you know, Noah
Yeah,
Centineo has
but
a
then Josh is wearing a beanie.
yeah, 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 that distinguishes them. And and yeah, I mean, I think we sort of mentioned off pod about the Peter Kaczynski character. Are you a big fan?
Well, you know, I sort of want to talk a little bit about relationships in general within this film, and I think, you know, he comes into it, of course. You know, there's something here that I really appreciate, because I think the love between sisters, and then, you know, in turn the love of a widowed father, are sort of relationships that are vastly underrepresented within films.
Agreed.
And you know, and in, you know, the in this film, I just feel like those relationships are so authentic and so much more warm and compelling than the romance between Lara Jean and the human block of granite.
Yeah, you would
You
like that.
know,
I love it. Lara Jean.
I did initially write the human block of granite, no Centineo, but that's a bit mean. So I said Peter Kavinsky.
Peter Kavinsky. I think Lara Jean's dad is one of my favorite characters in these films. Like he's a really sweet dude for the most part. I think and yeah, I mean, I think I've written a line here, mate. I'm not too sure what this was referring to in the film because I watched this a few days ago. I've just written here, pulling out is not protection. Do you know what that refers to
Yes,
in the
that
film?
refers to where Lara Jean is about to go on the ski trip with Peter, and her dad gives her a big old envelope of condoms.
That's it. That's it. That's the one. That's the one. But yeah, I mean, in relation to the ski trip, one thing I find really fun about Peter Kavinsky's character is that he gets upset because Lara Jean doesn't sit next to him in the bus.
That offends you, does it? I
No, no,
mean,
I find it quite
I
funny.
feel like that's very much in, you know, the vein of, you know, you would sort of invite someone to sit beside you on a bus, you know, if you were interested.
Oh, I would, but Peter,
Based on no example whatsoever that I can, you know, comes to mind.
oh, Peter Kavinsky is what I'm trying to say here with Peter Kavinsky.
You're trying to say you're Peter Kavinsky.
That's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is Peter Kavinsky kind of comes off as a little bit I'm not sure
Petty?
what the word, insecure, petty. I don't know,
Mm.
and maybe that's part of the character from Noah's Engineer. Like maybe that's why, you know, he's not supposed to come off this like as this jock style character. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, we obviously spend a lot of the film with Lara Jean, so we get to see the transition point where, you know, she pivots from, you know, this is a fake relationship to I have real feelings. But because we're not really seeing a lot of Peter, he sort of goes from he sort of, you know, has that transition in a
Yeah,
period that we don't actually see. So one moment it is
yeah,
fake, or you know, maybe it never was, because you know we sort of read his love notes, you know, later in the film, and he seemed to always care. But you know, the sort of romantic interest kind of just appears, you know, in one moment. You know, he goes from, you know, a sort of a friend type relationship to then, you know, the bus and then the hot tub. So,
yeah.
you
That's
know,
it, doesn't it?
we don't really get to see that transition. So I guess the insecurity maybe comes from the fact that, you know, he had started to develop real feelings.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's part of the strongest dynamics in the film, that like they are fake boyfriend and girlfriend for the most part, and then they actually do develop
Hmm.
feelings. Like it is quite a cliche, but I thought I thought it was a
Yeah,
very sweet dynamic. If I'm honest, I thought it was
yeah.
really great.
Yeah, there's nothing new about like the arranged fake relationship trope. You know, it's seen most recently in Bridgerton. You know, there's something very similar, and it's done very well there as well. But, you know, here like the kind of candy colored vibrancy, you know, the kind of Riverdale vibe of the
Yeah, it is.
aesthetic, and
Yeah.
you know, Lara Jean's warm personality. Like I think this is one of the few that it's completely convincing, that and Bridgerton. You know, because it convinced me that would turn into a real relationship, because she would just be so sweet and nice that it would will it into being.
1,000,000%. And I really, on the subject of like similar media that it reminds me of, it kind of reminds me of like the sex education sort of dynamic, where it's like a quite a vibrant sort of alternate kind of setting. And no, I thought
Mm,
I thought it was a really, it was quite a surprising film as well. I think for the most part, obviously we sort of mentioned that think we sort of expected with Netflix teen rom-coms, like a little bit of cringe here and there, but there is a bit of cringe here, but it's actually for the most part overshadowed by the great performances, for the most part, you know, by Lana Condor. Yeah,
yeah, and you know, Peter, of course, is, you know, using you know, the fake relationship as a ploy to get his girlfriend Jen back. And I
yeah,
don't really understand why Peter would fight so hard to get back with someone so unpleasant. Like I understand that it's realistic, because you know people do
yeah,
that. You know, they don't realize what's best for them some of the time. But I, you know, I can't put myself in his place and understand that position.
yeah. I know what you mean. I think the Jen character becomes a lot more likable in the second film, doesn't she? Towards the end of that one.
Yeah, you know, there's a sense of humanization, but you know, we kind of only really get to understand why she's being unpleasant at that moment, and you know why she needs Peter. You know, as in the second film, you know, we only really understand why she needed Peter in that one occasion, but we don't really fully grasp why she's so unpleasant to Lara Jean.
Yeah,
You know, she
yeah.
says that, you know, she kissed Peter, you know, when she knew she liked him, but I mean, you know, to quote Peter Kavinsky, you can't cheat the bottle. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't
get
cheat the
over it.
bottle. Yeah. Did you ever play spin the bottle in primary school?
I did not, Matthew. I did not do any socializing in primary school,
I
unfortunately.
see. I see.
Was it something that occurred for you?
Was I was a big spin the bottle fan.
Top.
Basically, basically, yeah. In primary school, if it landed on you, you'd have to share a truth, and then, um,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So like, we used to have a thing in primary school, like your top five. So it's like your top
Yeah,
five like crushes or whatever.
Matthew's told us
It's
about
so
this a lot.
silly. It's so silly. And there wasn't. I don't think there was any dares or anything like that. Like, there's nothing really major.
Right. I mean, you do know spin the bottle is, you know, it lands on the person and you kiss them. I thought
Yeah,
that was, you
we
know,
played a
where
different
you were sort of,
we
yeah,
played a different
you
game.
played it different, but you know, they did a bit of a remix, but you know,
Yeah, there's a. I mean, there was a time
it's
when
uncooler than I thought, but that's fine. That's fine,
there's a
Matthew.
well,
It's
there
fine.
was a. I think there was maybe a time where like we used to play Truth or Dare a lot, and then one of the dares was like, you know, we used to have a thing called the buddy shed. That sounds so strange. Your face there, you. But yeah, we
You
used to
do
have
want
a
to tell us what happened in
yeah.
the buddy shed?
So yeah, we used to have something called like the buddy shed. So like all the P7s would wear red caps and like be mentors to the younger students, and then they used to like chill out in the buddy shed. And it sounds so weird, but anyway, like we used to like I dare you to kiss this girl. We'll call her
Yeah,
um
Matthew went to a rural school. Let's put that out there.
yeah, I went to a culty school. So we'll call this girl Leanne. So you know, they're like, I dare you to kiss Leanne in the buddy shed. So then you'd go into the buddy shed, you'd give her a peck in the cheek, and that was it.
Be on your way.
That was that was the magic of the buddy shed, my friend. It was quite the place. It was quite the place. But no, it brought it brings back good. It's just your reaction there when I said buddy shed. Like it does sound quite strange, doesn't it? It sounds quite dangerous. But yeah, I mean, this movie brought back good memories of Spin the Bottle back in the day for sure.
I like how primary schools give you a sense of power by either making you a prefect or a mentor, as though you've sort of matured into like a world weary all-knowing figure
Yeah,
between P1 and P7.
yeah, like a John Ambrose or whatever. Those kind of like what's his name? John Ambrose McLaren or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, like
But
because I assume you were like a prefect, like I was
in primary school, yeah.
in primary school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
primary school, yeah, we had like a buddy system, so, as I said, and I
of
wish
course.
in high school we had like the prefect shed or something. That'd be quite strange though, wouldn't it? Like we never really had like a prefect hangout zone, really, just the common room, but that was for everyone.
Yeah, we never really got to socialize with the other prefects, because there were only
Yeah,
the senior prefects, that is,
yeah,
the
senior
because I mean,
prefects.
yeah, there's just the 16 of us. So I mean, yeah, I think a place to sort of, because I mean we did a lot of like planning for assemblies. So I mean it would have been nice to have sort of an area,
Yeah,
because
no,
you weren't
yeah, would
allowed
have
to
been
speak
good.
and study, and you
Would
weren't
have been
allowed
good.
to like obviously go to the common room at study periods. I mean, of course I did, but you're not meant to. You know,
Oh, yeah, I know.
yeah, I was a rebel by year 42.
Back in the old days, the old OG days, yeah. But yeah, I mean, any more points from you, bud?
Yeah, so I'd mentioned the sort of relationship between sisters before, and one of my favorite things about this film is how quickly the situation between Lara Jean and Margot is resolved. Because I
Yes.
think in reality, a 30-second conversation between the two of them would solve the situation entirely, and that's actually how it went in the film.
Yeah, a million percent. Yeah, like I'm sort of glad they don't you know, delay the film by sort of focusing on that plot line too much and spending needless time on it. I'm really glad that it sort of sweeps it under the rug. That's it, and it carries on. Like the pacing of the film actually is quite good, I think. You know what?
Yeah, because I
You know
mean,
what?
the
Yeah, go ahead.
extent of the conversation you need to have is, oh, you fancy my ex-boyfriend? Not anymore. Okay.
Yeah, that's literally it. That's literally it. Like I'm sure like like I sort of mentioned, like I'm sure this film is for a specific audience, like sort of like I don't know, teenage girls or whatever, people our age. But I think I think the fact that the characters are for the most part so likable, and it is of course very well paced, very well acted. I think this film could be for a lot of different audiences. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those, and the soundtrack's actually very good as well. Like it's a lot of modern sort of style tunes, but for the most part, like engages you in the film as well. And yeah, there's nothing stand out about it, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah,
there's nothing hideous or atrocious about it. It's just a perfectly good film. You know what I mean?
yeah. It's a very watchable film. I think it's a really easy, comfortable watch. We've
I
had a lot of
agree.
struggles recently with 3 hour plus films where we have to watch it in 4 sittings. But I watched both of these films in just one sitting, and
Yeah,
I think it's just so easy to do that. And I think the film ends with a very sweet ending.
it
Where of
does. It
course
does.
the two of them are joined, and I think they say in that moment like that they love each other, but then that's made a big deal in the second one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they say at the end of this one. I watched it
I
this
think
morning,
so.
but I wasn't paying a huge amount fuck. I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention because of how many times I've seen it. But it's kind of disappointing just having seen the sequel. Even on this rewatch, I had seen the sequel before. Just knowing that she can do better, it's just a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we'll get onto the sequel in a minute. Do you have any other points in this one, bud?
I have nothing else now.
No worries, man. Well, that leaves me to ask you, dude, what would you rate it out of 10?
So I think this ranks among some of my absolute favorite Netflix original films. It's definitely the best Netflix original romance, 100%. I think it's unrivaled. Kissing Booth is obviously hilarious, but it's terrible. Kissing Booth 2 is terrible, but not even funny. And then, Sierra Burgess is a loser, fucking unwatchable. It also has Noah Centineo in it. He's
Oh
also
wow,
dreadful in
he's a
that.
recurring
Yeah,
theme
no,
then.
he was making his way around, making the rounds on Netflix. He's sort of a company boy. But this film is so pleasant, so lovely, so easy to watch, and that's all down to Lana Condor and the aesthetics and the music. Like there's so many layers to this film that I really love. It's short. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah,
That
it is,
they
yeah.
get a whole romance within one film.
They do,
And
they do.
they managed to make a very watchable runtime. So I really love this film. It's obviously not one of the greats of all time, but if I'm balancing quality and enjoyment, it's an 8 at least.
Yeah, but I think that's spot on, Callum, to be honest with you. I think you've smashed it there, man. And yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Lana Condor is absolutely fantastic here. The film has a really excellent like visual quality to it. I don't know if I can't really construct that point right, but it really looks pretty. And I mean, it's really well edited, really great music here, and just a really nice watch where you can just watch it and just not think too much about it. So yeah, it's a 7.5 for me, a very, very serviceable Netflix original film. So I mean, that leads us on to the second and final film of today, which we mentioned, of course, in our first one. It's P.S. I Still Love You, the sequel. I think it came out a year later after this one, maybe a couple of years later. But yeah,
Yeah,
for
it
this one,
came out last year.
last year, and for this one, I have even less notes from the first one. So I think it's going to be
Me
very
too.
brief, very brief from me. But if you want to open the floor, bud, you crack on.
Yeah, I actually got 35 minutes into the film without making a note, and
Yeah,
I was a bit
I was
concerned
pretty
at
much
that
the
point.
same.
I was like, is this episode going to be podcast
Podcast.
length?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's really just because in the style of Back to the Future, one film kind of drips into the other.
Yes.
If you watch these back to back, it's one story. I think there's a little bit of separation of time between the second and the third film. The third film came out today, so I'll be watching that this
Oh,
evening.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
they sort of these first two films sort of casually drip into one another. So I think a lot of what's applicable to the first film, its entire film, is applicable to the first half an hour, 40 minutes of this film. And one difference for me is the romance here, I think, between between Lara Jean and Peter is a lot more sickening than the first, because Lana Condor is definitely as charming as she was in the first, but I feel like she doesn't believe the dialogue as much as she did before. I think she's like, oh, what is this shit? Like, Jacob Elordi with the Kissing Booth too, where he was like, I'm gonna put in minimal effort. She irradiates this like warmth and positivity, but I think she's just like, oh, what is this drivel?
Yeah, potentially. I think so. And I could definitely see how it comes off that way, but 100%, of course I can. I thought the opening sort of, 15 minutes of when they're going on the date and stuff, I actually thought was really, really sweet, really, really charming. And I kind of wish that this film didn't introduce the John Ambrose McLaren character, because it kind of makes you, it kind of adds a different contrast that it makes me think too much about the film in a weird way.
Yeah.
And, of course, I think the main flaw with
But
this.
I mean, I am struggling to think like where would they go otherwise?
Yes, I know, because they need to create a conflict, don't they? They really do. And I think for me, the potential message of this film is a little bit flawed, because it kind of suggests that, Lara Jean has just settled for Peter. Like she says, I always wanted a happily ever after, but I kind of acknowledge it doesn't exist. And I was like, I don't know if that's the right message for this kind of film. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I kind of felt like she was settling for Peter, and that they're just going to be content. Yeah. Did you kind of feel that?
Exactly. Yeah, you want a story about someone meets the one,
I do.
because
Me.
that's
of
what
course.
that's what meets your expectations of romance. Your standards. You like to feel a connection immediately.
Completely.
So yeah, I think that's what you wanted here, and this romance certainly isn't that. That they really had to warm to each other, and in this film, yeah, she seems to just barely be tolerating him. Because he buys her a lot of expensive things and takes her to nice places. There's not a lot of warmth or charm there. I think he's handsome and he spends a lot of money, but like where is it? Why is she in the relationship beyond the fact that she has so low expectations of herself that
yes,
100%. She doesn't think she deserves better, which is John Ambrose.
Yeah.
But a significant way into the film, Peter takes Lara Jean to a party, and he returns her home, and then he starts unbuttoning her shirt after kissing her for a little bit, and then she's like, oh, I don't want to have sex. And he's like, I wasn't trying to have sex. Like, I was like, he was like, I don't want to have sex with you in front of your house, in a parked car. I'm like, well, what were you trying to do in a parked car in front of her house if you weren't trying to have sex with her? you're unbuttoning her shirt,
Maybe he's
like
just trying to. Maybe he's just trying to inspect her skin just to see if it was fine. I don't know what he was doing there.
yeah.
Like classic Peter Kaminsky. One thing about this film, which actually kind of made me laugh a little bit, is that this brings back OG Reggie from Riverdale,
Yes.
which kind of makes me think, was he doing 13 Reasons Why and this film instead of becoming Reggie again? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it must have been.
Yeah, I love it. Well, one character we also mentioned in the previous film was their dad, as Lara Jean's dad, and I think it was a really sweet thing of him to continue the Korean heritage tradition. I thought it was quite heartwarming.
Mm.
It's a nice message to suggest, like, even though their Korean mother has passed away, it's important for their family still to continue that tradition on even after her passing. So that was a really nice message. Um, so it was as well, and of course, this film also has a niche reference for us because we've never really mentioned this on podcast before. But this film has a rendition of Backstreet Boys, and really
Oh
what
yeah,
reminded me of
yeah.
yeah, what really reminded me of our
Yeah, because
rendition of it.
a few years ago, of course, in season 5 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which has been announced, unfortunately, is coming to an end. I say
Oh,
unfortunately, the last 2 seasons have been absolute dog shit. So I mean, I'm kind of glad. I hope they just give it a good send off. But in season 5, there's a scene where people sing "You Are My Fire." No, that's not what it's called, is it? What is
oh,
it
I
called?
want it that way.
I Want It That Way. By the Backstreet Boys. I'm gonna get slaughtered for not knowing that, but a bunch of people sing that, and then that sort of revitalized the popularity in the song. So then you started seeing it everywhere for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And amongst that, of course, were our friends who were, you know, uh, you know, is it a
You know,
cringy thing to do? I mean, looking back on it, of course, that was a year ago when we were
we were
just
little
we were
boys.
but we were but boys
We were
then.
yeah, we were but
Matthew's now
little.
a 19-year-old man.
We're big boys, Callum. We're big boys now. We've changed a lot. Yeah, it kind of brought back that memory for me as well. So it did. It was yeah. I probably wouldn't do it again if I'm honest. I look back.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think
there is a video of me bursting out of a locker, but it's it's quite far up, like it's off the ground, and it's like deep, not tall. So I mean, I'm like
I'm amazed
stuffed
you.
into
I'm amazed you.
like a postal slot almost, and
Yeah,
then I like burst out of the door.
it seems like it was like the TARDIS in there. Like it was just bigger on the inside. Like it looked like quite a small little box.
I'm
Um,
a bendy boy. What can I
Flexible
say?
man, flexible man. But yeah, I mean, I don't have that much more to say. I mean, I think for me, this film obviously illustrates the hot tub twist that it was Peter waiting for Jen, actually, which even
Hmm.
makes you dislike his character even more, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I really struggled to like Peter in this film, and it sort of poisons what I thought of him in the previous film, and then they don't really do anything to recover that. Lara Jean just decides that she'll stay with him.
Yeah,
They don't really do anything to morally absolve him, or say that he's doing something else to sort of make up for something. He's kind of just existing in this film, and he exists only as Lara Jean's boyfriend. There's not really any balance in screen time between the two of them, which I think is okay for the first film because you have to establish a lead. But when it comes to like adult rom-coms, it's usually 50-50. But when it comes to these teen films, it tends to be a female lead, and it tends to be her getting the majority of the screen time. And it's kind of like the Disney Prince scenario where they
yeah,
just arrive into their life, they exist only to be their boyfriend, and they don't have any depth. Which I mean, is certainly the case for many girlfriend characters in TV and film. And I would equally criticize that there. But here, I think we just need to see more of him and more of him being a better person.
yeah. I think you're right. It doesn't really establish Peter's life outside of his bubble with Lara Jean, and I would have liked to see that more. Maybe present a bit more likability to the character. For
Hmm.
the most part, yeah, I think you're spot on there, Cam. I think you're right.
Yeah, and it had occurred to me earlier, in the episode, but I forgot to reference it, and you reminded me again that this film technically is, it's about a Korean family. So really, we're talking about Korean
Yes,
cinema again,
yes, that's a good shout,
which
actually.
we
Yeah,
which
from
just
our
previously talked about Space
space
Sweepers,
sweepers. Yeah,
and we're planning now to talk about Train to Busan,
we are.
following the recommendation by Joseph in the comments.
Shout out,
So we'll
Joseph.
be talking about that sometime soon. So this
Absolutely.
film,
And
once again, we're talking about. I mean, of course, I'm not really sure if any of the cast are actually Korean. You know, that I don't actually, I didn't go into that in my research, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
But
me neither.
you know, it's
It's
about a
interesting.
Korean
It's an
family,
interesting
so
connection. It
we're talking
absolutely is.
more about the
We
Korean
are.
community.
No, we absolutely are. We absolutely are. And I'm actually, I'm really enjoying that sort of, I don't know, that sort of dynamic as well. You know, I think it's really interesting to learn more about other cultures as well. So, I mean, 100%. You know, Train to Busan, where that'll be a good review as well. But
I'm looking forward to one where it's actually like all set in Korea with people speaking Korean, you know,
yeah,
rather than Space Sweepers where it was, you know, 50-50, you know, well,
yeah,
pretty much 50-50 English to Korean, and it was mostly set in space. You know, I'd like to see something set in South Korea.
yeah. I kind of feel bad for you know people of countries where like let's take the movie The Wolverine for example. Like I'd imagine a lot of that movie, you know, maybe some people who live in Japan maybe feel like it's a bit of a like a lot of the film has stereotypes about Japan in there. I'm not too sure. Like I doubt it's the most faithful and the most accurate
Yeah,
Japanese depiction. Do you know what I mean? Because it's obviously it's an American film with an American studio with an American writer, so it's kind of that makes it more hard. It makes it harder to sort of justify that authentic Japanese experience. Whereas I think with films like Space Sweepers as well, and having actors who are also from the country that it's set in, it just helps to create that authenticity, that tone, that just overall vibe of where it's set. I think it's important to do that, like to have that sort of respectful depiction in there. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of hope for like like a more faithful sort of foreign films as well. Like I think it's Train to Busan's also Korean, isn't it?
I believe so. You know, I imagine based on Joseph's comment, that was sort of what I
Yeah,
assumed from it, because you know, I think he just liked us exploring Korean cinema.
yeah.
So
Well,
I have to assume it is.
yeah. Well, for sure. Like we'll definitely get to go in more foreign films as well in the future as well. Not just Korean films, but
Mm.
really exciting times for us. I'm really
Yeah, I
looking
mean,
forward to them.
I think horror will be a big discussion. You know, we have like Pan's Labyrinth, which is
Yeah.
Spanish, The Orphanage.
Orphanage.
You know,
Yeah, it's a good shout.
Spain does horror well. You know, they're not coming to me. You know,
There's a
weirdly.
couple of
There's Ringu. You know,
there's a,
which is what
yeah.
the Ring films were based off of.
Yeah, there's a couple of like soccer, like football films that are set in Spain, which are pretty good. I can't believe I just said soccer. Such so American.
No, but I mean, are you referencing the film like The Dreams of Ivan or whatever?
I don't know what it's called. It's something like that, or like I think there's a
No,
film
like
called
it is
Goal
definitely
as
like
well.
that's the English translation, but it's like something de Ivan.
Something like I do remember something like that watching it in Spanish class. But oh yeah, La Vie en Rose is actually a very good film, a French film. I quite like that in Spanish
Hmm,
class as well as I think it's Les Mis is French as well, isn't it? But
yeah,
yeah,
and
any
the
more?
Seventh Seal, which I've talked to you
Yes,
about, is you know the big influence on Bill and Ted, Bill and
yeah,
Ted's
yeah, I
Bogus
remember that.
Journey.
Yeah,
So
for sure,
I sort of like to explore that.
for sure.
And you know, to get back to the film, you know, one person that we've been remiss in mentioning is of course John Ambrose McLaren, and he's just a
What a
likable,
guy.
charming, interesting, wholesome guy, and he's a musician. I want to be John Ambrose
You
McLaren
want to be John Ambrose
desperately.
McLaren?
Of
Absolute
course,
top
like
shagger.
yeah, I mean, of course you do. Like you know, at the end of this film, you know, like
He's so nice, Callum, isn't he? He's such a sweetheart.
yeah, I'm just really I'm really disappointed in the end. You know, if I'm
Yeah.
honest, and I'm kind of padding time because I can't find the note where I've referenced that. You know,
Well, one thing I found
so
about his
what?
character, he's
Yeah.
back in the third one. I think. I think he's back.
Well, see, I've seen conflicting information because I desperately want him to be back. You know, I was worried that they would sort of forget about him like they did Josh.
Yeah.
But you know, I want to see this man find love. And you know, in the main cast of the Wikipedia, you know, it doesn't mention him. But then if you go onto Jordan Fisher's Wikipedia, yes, I did go this deep. On his Wikipedia itself, it says that he's in this film, and I
Yeah.
want to trust that because I want to be optimistic because I want to see this man again.
Hmm. Yeah. No, for sure. He's such a likable presence in the film. I think. And yeah, when you compare him to Peter, it's just light and day, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I'd mentioned before that you know the nicest thing that Peter ever does is buy large is that he buys large gifts. And you
Yeah.
know, I think just buying people stuff, you know, that is a love language in itself, as people say. But you know, I think it needs to be, you know, there also needs to be love, warmth, and caring, and communication there. And that there's no communication between these two guys. Like it's a bad relationship. If he never finishes a sentence. Lara Jean always makes an assumption, and then he goes, "Oh, I'll try and make you understand. Say a sentence." She always goes like, she's like, "Oh, why does Jen have my scrunchie? Did you give it to her?" And he's like, "You don't understand." I'm like, "Say she stole it. Like, you didn't give it to her. Defend yourself." Like, he never defends himself, and it's the communication that's the issue. John Ambrose, I think, is just the better person for her. He's the better person in general, and I think he's the better person for her. And admittedly, if this film ended with her binning off Peter, I mean, they do actually break up, so it's not like she was cheating on him like Elle does in The Kissing Booth 2. But here, she, I feel like if she just binned off Peter, that this franchise changes massively. I think it would have been a bizarre ending for the film had she chosen John Ambrose. But I was still sitting there even on the second rewatch, just wishing and hoping that she would. Unlike Kissing Booth 2, I think that Lara Jean actually deserves the better guy. Elle absolutely does not deserve Marco in that film, but here, I think she deserves John Ambrose.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And it's gonna be. I think they still have to introduce 2 other of the letter recipients, and don't they, in the third film?
Well, there was, the one that got returned to her because it was addressed to just the camp bunks in the first film, so that just got sent right back. And then, no, we've seen the other 4. There's Lucas, Josh, Peter, and John.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, no, that's it. Fair. Yeah.
I know too much about this. I
love it though. I love it.
Don't think that I'm like watching these all the time. Like I just had watched them this morning. But we've talked about John Ambrose, and of course, I'm jealous of John Ambrose, but so too is Peter. And he's clearly worried about John Ambrose like making moves on his girlfriend. So he's sort of he's like a dog pissing on something. He's marking his territory. He's going like, "Oh, I think I could help my girlfriend clean up," and I'm like,
he's like,
"Chill, man." Like he didn't know.
Next time I'll get the pizza.
The way to resolve this situation is make yourself the better option. If you're worried that your girlfriend is looking elsewhere, make yourself the better option. Treat her better. And Peter has a lot of room to do that. Lara Jean. I suppose Lara Jean. We have to equally criticize. I don't think she does that much for Peter. Like he drives her everywhere and takes her to nice places, buys her stuff. If that's how he shows affection, fair enough, I guess. I think there needs to be a bit more depth there. But she seems to obviously be crazy for Peter. She seems to be in love with him, as she says in the film, but she doesn't do anything for him, I guess. Like she's like always like fawning over him, and he's like her fantasy man. She's just happy to be in a relationship and happy to go on dates, and she says this date was perfect. But I mean, I would like to see effort there. If we're gonna criticize equally, I'd like to see an effort be put in there, and I think we may see that in the third one, because it's just like the Kissing Booth 3 will be about. It's about her decision of where to go to university, if whether she goes with Peter, or whether she goes off on her own journey. I think we may see a bit more there, where she's taking his thoughts and feelings into consideration. But if you're worried about John Ambrose being the better option, make yourself the better option. Don't personally attack his insecurities.
Agreed. I think for me, part of the Peter character, I suppose, is that he can't sort of illustrate his emotions the way he wants to. That's why I suppose he steals an Edgar Allan Poe poem as try to pass it off as his own. If only we had thought to do that in English class. But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like
I wrote some bomb-ass poetry in English. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, the haikus back in the day, mate, good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I actually remember I did my first poem in English in the Avengers film.
Oh really? Like we had to like the first and I think only poem I've ever written that wasn't like a limerick or something, in primary school, was probably third year. And it had to be about the war. So I did one about the war efforts, because it was meant we were learning about like jingoism and sort of the the level of patriotism, and we had to make sort of a pro-war poem. But I don't know how you snuck Avengers in there.
Infinity War, maybe that's where I was going. I'm not too sure what I was going to do in there, but yeah. I think the Peter character has a lot of room to grow, hopefully in the third film, and And yeah, I'm not sure. I'm actually not too sure where the third film's going to go with those characters. I hope it's fresh and I hope it's unique, but I hope it makes sense in the context of the relationships. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you know it's going to end with her staying with Peter, which is just going to be. I mean, you logically,
Yeah.
where else do you go? Like the writers are boxed in because there are like 15-year-old girls who are like, oh my god, I love Peter Kavinsky. And of course, if you have Lara Jean either pick someone else or move on from him, that's not going to be a satisfying conclusion for them. But we know as bitter adults that relationships aren't always ideal. Your first boyfriend isn't going to be your last boyfriend. For the vast majority of people. So if you sort of present this ideal version of events, like it's probably going to feel a bit sickening to me, as as this film does.
Well, I suppose stay tuned later on in the week for our review of Always and
I
Forever.
hope my cynicism hasn't like beaten you down.
No, it absolutely hasn't. No, it absolutely hasn't. I'm so tired. I don't know what's happened. Maybe I was at work last night
Yeah,
till
Matthew's a
11.
working man.
I know, working man. That's it, buddy. That's it. But I think you're right, buddy. I think the Peter character has a lot of room to grow, and as well as I suppose as well as Lara Jean as well. To be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, as I've mentioned, that there is like an unbalanced level of screen time. Where we're always hearing Lara Jean's like thought process. Through her first person narration.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we just heard in that first person narration or saw it within her screen time that she goes out of her way to do something nice for Peter. She thinks about him other than just about the previous girlfriend that he's had, or thinking about him in regards to how much he's disappointed her or something. If she thinks, oh, what could I do to do something nice for him, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. 100%, man. 100%. Any more remarks from you, bud?
Well, there's a scene within this film that is sort of much reviled by people, and I've heard it criticized countless times. People have put it on high ranking on lists of worst scenes of that year, and it's the scene where Lara Jean, you probably won't even remember this because I just think it's not that bad. I don't think you'll know what I'm talking about, but there's a scene where Lara Jean lip syncs to a song called "Moral of the Story," and it's like a time lapse where she's like passing through the halls. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
regarded
yeah.
as this incredibly cringy scene, but it's nowhere near as cringe as people say.
Yeah.
It's out of place, sure, but it's not terrible. Like it's
not
not
the worst.
notably
The worst.
a terrible scene.
Yeah, there's definitely far worse scenes in the Kissing Booth movies that
Absolutely.
so much more cringe. Really, like I think these films, if you compare them to any other Netflix rom-com, for the most part, teen rom-com specifically, it definitely stacks up as one of the better ones for sure. Like these two so far, and hopefully the third film is that way as well. But yeah, it's not Kissing Booth cringe for me. It's nowhere near that. Nowhere near it.
Well, I mentioned that the first film is really I reference these films as being like Kissing Booth, but really Kissing Booth are like these films because these came first.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the first film, it is essentially the Kissing Booth, but Lara Jean is Lee, and then this film, it's essentially it's just the same as the Kissing Booth. L is Lara Jean, but where I've said the first film is pretty much the Kissing Booth but better. I'm just wondering, is this film better than the Kissing Booth too? Like the characters certainly are, but is the movie? Because I think we both agree that the Kissing Booth 2, we probably on a in an effort to be comedic, I'm sure that we dragged it more than it actually deserved. It's probably a half decent film.
I don't mind it.
So
looking back, I quite
I haven't seen it a second time. I've seen the first one 2 or 3 times, but the second one I haven't felt the need to go back. I'm probably going to for the third, which comes out mid 2021. So, but is this film better than the Kissing Booth 2?
I'm not sure it is. Like,
I don't know.
I can't remember what I gave the Kissing Booth films in the rating. It must have been
the
bad.
Kissing Booth 2 is better than the first, but it's so much less entertaining because there's nowhere near as much cringe. So it's just a not good film that's not funny either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a very bad experience, but is it a bad film? I don't know, because we were obviously taking notes on our first watch of it, so like we don't really know, but I think it must have been a bad film, and I don't think this film's as bad. It can't be.
That's fair. Yeah, it's true. It's kind of a low bar.
It's a very low bar.
Yeah, I know. Does that wrap up your thoughts then, buddy?
Yeah, that's everything for me.
No worries. Well, what would you rate P.S. I love you? P.S. I still love you. Sorry, isn't it?
So this film, I watched it as soon as it came out. You know, I was eager on the day. I watched it, thought it was fucking dreadful. You know, I absolutely resented the fact
Oh
that John
man.
Ambrose McLaren is just left in the dust of Peter Kavinsky, like who's just this, you know, bumbling idiot. You know, he does nothing, you know, to actually create a, you know, functional relationship, and he's just going off and, you know, providing emotional support to everyone except his actual girlfriend. So it kind of just pissed me off, that whole decision, and it kind of poisons the rest of the film, especially once you know going in that that's going to happen. I mean, of course, you know, knowing the structure of these kind of films, you knew that was going to happen. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think for a moment you were convinced that she was going to drop Peter. Like, it's
No.
Noah
Yeah.
Centineo.
Yeah.
The film is, you know, they pretty much have like 50-50 billing. They don't have equal screen time, but they're like, oh my god, look at this hunk. You know, like the you know,
Yeah.
they're very much pushing Noah Centineo as a movie star.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
I'm not convinced, but you know, maybe we'll see in the
He's
future.
got a
But
new haircut in the third
pretty
one.
much, yeah, he hasn't been able to escape, like, you know, the Netflix rom-coms. Like, I think I need to see him in something bigger and better,
Yeah.
definitely better. But you know, this film is nowhere near as dreadful as I remember it. You know, because I despised it on the first watch, but I think the story is just unsubstantial. You know, it's kind of in the way that you kind of like, a lot of this film is, you know, normal people doing normal people stuff. You know, there's not a lot of substance to the storyline. It's kind of just them going about their day, and then there's this sort of injection of conflict. But not a lot of the film is actually spent with John Ambrose. You know, he's barely in
Yeah.
the film. You know,
Yeah.
he's in like four or five scenes. You know, he's quite a small supporting character in the film. So I just think that there's not a lot of substance, but it's not bad what's there, except,
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't judge the film for the fact that Lara Jean would logically make that decision. I judge that character for not knowing better. So I think I need to rate the film a bit more reasonably. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it nearly reaches the quality of the original, but I think if I had such a disgusted reaction, I think I have to factor that in.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I have to concur with the 7.5. You know, I think looking back, I remember I said at the start of the podcast I prefer this one, but looking back, I probably don't prefer it to the first one. I think the first one's a lot more charming. It has a lot more substance to it for the most part. That being said, this film's still perfectly serviceable. You know, there's nothing atrocious about it. But when you bring in like such a morally likable character like John Ambrose McLaren and you compare him to Peter Kavinsky, it kind of creates that dynamic.
John
Where,
Ambrose gave me massive Matthew vibes. That's all I'm saying. So
oh,
that's a testament to the kind of character he is.
thank you, mate. You're very kind, very kind. And you know, I think it stands to reason that, of course, Lana Condor is still terrific here, and I think the third film hopefully is the best of the bunch. I really hope it is. It feels like it is building something, and it really does. Like it's so similar to the Kissing Booth arc. It really is. But yeah, I mean, I have to concur with
Because I
seven
mean,
point
we,
five.
we we know for a fact, because we saw, you know, this sort of glimpse of the third one at the end of the Kissing Booth 2, that it's also about the fact that Elle
Yes,
got into
yeah,
the same, that she got into Harvard, but Lee wants her to go to whatever it is, USC
yeah.
or
I
something.
really
I
don't
don't
like Lee in
remember.
those films. I really don't like him. Looking back,
No, because his brother gets into fights, but like they're always painting him as like this delinquent, and obviously I'm entirely unconvinced that he's smart enough to go to Harvard. But you know, Lee has known him all his life, so he must know that his, you know, brother isn't like a thundering dumbass. You know, like he
oh, I love
must
the
know
reference there.
he must know his, you know, his brother's intelligence
Yeah,
more than we do. So
yeah.
what does he really dislike about his brother? Like, I guess like they
I
have like
know.
the
Yeah,
normal like brotherly banter that, you know, that I have with my brother. Like, you know,
yeah.
it seems like, you know, it seems very normal brother stuff. And you know, if you know, my brother wanted to date a friend of mine, you know, and it went well, like I don't know why you wouldn't support that.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. Check out our Kissing Booth reviews as well. We have our Best Bud Cash on for those ones. It's always a laugh. But yeah, that wraps up another teen Netflix rom-com episode as well. And of course, you know, like we mentioned, we're going to be reviewing the third and final installment sometime the next coming days.
I think it's gonna be shite.
Oh, I think it will. I have a feeling as well it's going to be a letdown.
I think
But
it's gonna be a nosedive.
I know he's that. Yeah, I know. Oh God, imagine it is. Imagine. But yeah, I mean, thanks very much for today, buddy. I appreciate your time
Thank
as
you.
well, and thanks very much everyone who supported us recently. Really do appreciate that. Hope you guys are all well. Hope your family and friends are all safe and well too. Take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.